I'm in the chair, and he throws that first bomb to Janice there, and I get a little loud on that one. And he's kind of looking over at me. He's kind of looking like, I know this Packer fan is not cheering on my house right now. So then I told myself, I'm like, all right, kind of calm down a little bit. Then they throw the Hail Mary, and like Collinsworth is like, that's one of the best throws I think I've ever seen. I yell so loud, and he just looks over at me like, really? Like, you're going to have that enjoyment like right now?
Welcome to Tales from the Tundra, a show that captures one team's history told through the eyes of the fan. My name is Ben, and today I am speaking with Kirby. Kirby proudly reps the green and gold, despite living in Minnesota and having zero ties to Wisconsin. During our conversation, we talk about how he became a Packers fan despite having no ties or no connections to Wisconsin. We talk about his dad being a Vikings fan and what that upbringing was like, his favorite pieces of memorabilia, his first trip to Lambeau Field, and so much more. It was such a fun conversation, and I know you guys are going to enjoy it as much as I did. This is episode 13 of Tales from the Tundra with Kirby. Enjoy. When you're born and raised in Minnesota and you have zero ties to Wisconsin, on top of that, your dad is a big-time Vikings fan. How do you become a passionate Packers fan like Kirby?
Born and raised St. Paul, Minnesota, West Side. Shout out to the West Side there. Yeah. So like born and raised there, not a tie to Wisconsin.
How did you become such a diehard Packers fan?
So growing up, we were always like into sports. So my dad coached. All our friends played. You know, we like when we were like growing up, we had like kids in the neighborhood. We were all friends. So we'd go out to the fields on the weekend, play football, play tackle in the street. But I was always at a friend's house for football. It would be, you know, we would watch the early game, go play at halftime, come back, watch the second half, hop on our bikes, ride to the store before the before the 3:00 game starts. I come on back and watch that. And then I played sports, baseball, basketball, football. Did all of that. My dad coached. And my dad was, at that time, a very big Vikings fan, season ticket holder, like went to the games, like did all of that. And he didn't ever push it on me. He wasn't like, you got to be a Vikings fan. He was like, you can cheer for, you know, whoever the hell you want to at that point. And it was, you know, Brett Favre, Dorsey Levens, you know how it goes.
Yeah. Because we're the same. I mean, pretty close to the same age. I think you're just a little bit older than me, but yeah, I mean, I remember that exactly. That roster you fell in love with as a kid. They were just like next level, almost gods, if you will. What was your friend like a Packers fan at all? Or did you stick with them?
So, and it was kind of weird because, or like maybe like this helped, but it wasn't like they were all Vikings fans. I had friends who like one was a Buccaneers fan, one was a Patriots fan.
Sure.
Like one was a Vikings fan. I'm a Packers fan. I think we even like might have had a Lions fan in there way back then. You know when it was.
That's wild.
Yeah. So there was fans of everybody. So it wasn't like you had that pressure to be like, why are you the only fan that's not a Vikings fan at that point?
That's interesting. And then as you're kind of growing up, right, and that Packers Vikings rivalry has always been, it's had its ebbs and flows over the years, but like 1998 was really bad because Randy Moss, and then after that I feel like it heated up again for a bit. So with your dad being a big time Vikings fan, was that dynamic weird growing up? Like, did you guys have a lot of game day rituals that went around that, or anything like that?
Not really, no. So like my dad, he grew up a Vikings fan back when like football was football, you know, like the Purple People Eaters.
All right.
So he just like, even like back then he was a fan, but he was like, I'm not investing any emotions into this. Like he used to think like when I was growing up, like it got to the point where I was so invested, he would call me after games. He'd be like, hey, you good? Because it would ruin my entire week, you know, like when they lost. Yeah. And then it got to the point where he realized, okay, like it's not that big a deal. So he'd call and be like, dude, they suck. Like they're just bad. Like, because he would just like rub it in at that point.
Yeah.
And then he watched them lose, what was it, 4 championships throughout, you know, like his childhood. So he was like,
Right.
yeah, I'm out on that. Like, you're crazy. Like, he would be like, these guys, like, they don't even know like who you are. You know what I mean? And you're investing all this. So it was like a good little like balance point there. Cause I used to be into it where it was like, it would like ruin like my entire week if they lost.
I feel like when you're younger, it's extra bad. Like you take it so to heart because
Absolutely.
you invest so much into it as a kid. When you're older, you're like, I got bills to pay, I got a family. Yes, I love this team, but like also, I got other stuff going for me.
Life goes on at that point.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Um, so then as you're kind of growing up, because we were just out of high school and the Packers won Super Bowl 45.
Yep.
Take me through that. Take me through for you living in the Twin Cities that after that 2007 season, this guy that you grew up idolizing, if you will, or at least cheering for, now leaves, goes to the Jets for a season, and then goes to Minnesota. What was your experience like being in? Because I lived close to the border during that time, and dude, that is like peak Packers Vikings rivalry for me, and my hatred for the Vikings peaked at 2009. And I could only imagine what it was like being in the Twin Cities.
It was crazy because I was what you would call a vocal like Packers fan. I would let you know that I was a Packers fan, So friends, cousins, I'd be, I was a known, like I bled the colors there for a while. So when it flipped like that, and it flipped very quickly, where all of a sudden, like every news channel here, it was like, I mean, this is a bad analogy, but it was like the O.J. Simpson chase. You know what I mean? They had helicopters following them. I was like, what's going on here?
Dude, I think that's a perfect analogy because it was like that. I mean, the helicopters were following him all the way to the stadium and narrating like, oh,
it was great. It was crazy.
Opening the door for him and
shaking hands, going into the limousine. Meanwhile, on my phone, I'm getting texts from like numbers I don't even have saved. I'm not even sure who it is.
Just years.
I gotta respond like, but who is this again? Because I don't have your number in my phone.
Dude, you trash talked me in 2004. Yep.
Yeah. It was rough. It wasn't fun. Yeah.
Well, and then the Vikings have a phenomenal year in 2009. Favre has his best year of his career, really.
I remember when Greg Lewis like caught that pass in the end zone for them to win it. That was, I was like, yeah. I was like, here we go.
It's just going to be one of those years. So that entire year had to be as miserable for you as it was, probably more miserable for you than it was for me, just dealing with, because Viking fans, this living there, dude, they're all in when things are going well. And then the second things don't go well, they're all out.
They fall.
And that's a generalization,
absolutely.
But you listen to K-Fan there, and when the team goes like 2-0, 3-0, they're like, this might be the greatest Vikings team that ever, whatever. And then they lose a couple, and it's okay. Who can we get rid of before the deadline? What's the draft looking like? So that 2009 season, were you like, because we were, I don't know did you go to college or did you just go straight to the?
No. So I went. Yep. So I graduated, went like a year and a half at like a Votech school, and was like, yeah, I don't like this. So I was like done with that, and then I got a job. So I worked at like the dry cleaner, like throughout high school. Making the $8 or something an hour,
right?
Like just enough money to like like go to the mall after like on a Saturday. You got like paid in cash still. Like it wasn't even a check yet.
So you're just dealing with Vikings fans constantly, like coming in and talking about how great it is.
Well, yeah, yep, like it was that exactly. And then it was like again me going back to being like a vocal fan.
Right.
As much as I can like dish it out, you got to be able to take it as well. So it was like, all right, I'll just take my beatings here.
And then when they played the Saints in the championship game, I feel like that was like the height of my year that year was watching Favre throw that interception, and the Saints or the Vikings fans just like crumble after that loss.
And the thing that like gets me about that is they'll point to everything just except for the fact like I think like Peterson fumbled the ball like 5 times in that.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. He could not hold on to the ball.
So it wasn't there. This whole like bounty gate, yeah, it was there, but let's not pretend like it wasn't like everywhere else as well.
Right.
It just so happened, and then once they heard that and they seen it, and obviously like the Greg Williams thing and all that, like that all happened. So there was where there's smoke, there's fire in that regard.
Right. Right.
But now they just forget about every other factor, and it's like, and like I said, like when it happened, I sent out a lot of texts. You live by the sword, you die by the sword, like.
Just have the draft ready. Yeah, I've been a Packers fan long enough. I know what Brett Favre does in the playoffs.
It wasn't even
draft ready.
It wasn't even like an individual text. I threw them all in a group and just sent it out.
And then you get the next season that is completely the other way for Green Bay, Minnesota. They collapse. I mean, their stadium literally collapses.
That was wild as well. But that was like the whole like a icing on the cake there.
It really
was like what else could go here?
I was at that Packers Vikings game that was like 2 weeks before that, where the Packers just walloped them like 37-7 or whatever it was. It was something ridiculous. Right. And then to have the stadium collapse like 2 weeks later, I was just like, dude, it can't get any better than this. As like someone who went through the 2009 game or the 2009 season. And then when the Packers win the Super Bowl, of course, it gets better.
Well, and it was such a pendulum swing there because you went from the choppers following Favre to like the cameras watching the stadium implode. Right. And it was just like, talk about highs and lows for a season. My goodness, there for you.
Yeah,
Oof.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, yeah, going into 2010, all the Vikings fans thought they were going to have that lightning in a bottle a second time. So when the Packers won that Super Bowl or had that season, was that something like you were like?
Oh, that was awesome. Well, yeah, it was cool because I had just turned like 21, so I was able to go out to the bars.
Math. Yeah.
So I was like, "Hey, sweet! Like now I can go out." So I just started finding all these Packer bars in, St. Paul. So like, if I remember correctly. Would have been the wild card game versus the Eagles. Yep. I believe I was at I believe it was like Gabe's like by the park, which is like a Packer bar, and I believe they're like a Kentucky basketball bar. Like it's just random.
That's a
and
weird...
they would just it was weird because there wasn't like at that point it wasn't like you didn't have like a dedicated like Packer bar at that point.
Sure.
So then I found another one called Tiffany's. Tiffany's, and that was in St. Paul as well, off of Ford Parkway. I think it's still there as well. But I watched the divisional game there versus Atlanta.
Yep.
Which that one there, and
a nice relaxing game at Tiffany's.
Yeah, that was great. The beers were tasting really good for that game. Yeah, right when Williams, right when he made that pick at halftime, I was like, okay, yeah, and like Rodgers, he couldn't miss.
Dude,
I mean, he was unreal.
The greatest,
just an unreal.
You'll watch. So,
but then watching, go ahead.
Go ahead. You're kind of finished.
I was going to say, like then for the championship game, I went back to Tiffany's for the Bears game for that one. Then they ended up like roasting a bear like during the game for that at that bar. So you had to like sign a waiver because like the Bears are full of stuff. So you had to like sign a waiver like before you could get a plate of it. But people are sitting there like pounding beers like with a plate of bear like as they're watching the game. Yeah. Yes, it was. It was great. It was great.
Curious the logistics on that of how do you like get a bear in such short notice to roast?
It was there because I saw it. I saw it in the back. It was spinning on the roaster. I'm like, there was a guy. I didn't like. I can't say it was a handful of people, but there was a guy that had a plate that I watched him like take the bear and watch the game. Like,
you didn't have any?
It, so. No, I didn't have any. No, I was out. I was on a liquid diet that day.
Liquid diet. So then, for Super Bowl 45, did you go back to Tiffany's as well?
Went back to Tiffany's. Yep. So I had a buddy at that time that was actually from Wisconsin. Can't remember exactly where, but he figured out. I think it was the Atlanta game that I was also a Packer fan. So then he's like, "Hey, like let's go watch a game." But I was like, "I'm already going to Tiffany's." He was going somewhere else. So we're like, "If they make it, let's go to Tiffany's." Well, sure enough. They make it. So we huck over to Tiffany's. They had a bunch of pool tables or like a few pool tables that they just covered up with like plywood and put like it looked like a sheet over it. So you just had like pop-up tables,
Wow.
like at this bar, and it was jam packed in there, a ton of people in there. And they had a button where when the Packers scored, you could hit this button and it was like a shot, like mixed with whatever it was. I'm sure it was like old booze. I'm sure it was like old booze they were trying to like get rid of or something. But but you would hit this button and you go bam bam ba go, and boom, they would start passing out shots.
Wow.
So that was fun. That was, I almost wish I didn't get as drunk as I did.
Right. Oh,
Just so I can remember, like, oh yeah, it was prime. It was like top of the football like fandom there at that point.
Well, and we watched the Packers win Super Bowl 31, but we were both very young. Like, that's one of the games that I remember most vividly from my childhood. But you also had this long wait in between, and you had so many times where you got close and you thought this was the year, this was the year, this was the year. And then there'd be like heartbreaking loss, heartbreaking loss, heartbreaking loss. And so to finally like have it be a year where you're like, this isn't the year, and then it is the year and they win the Super Bowl. I understand. Well, you're celebrating, man. That's exciting. And
and it was, at that end, the end of the previous year was that like overtime loss, like versus the Cardinals, where the Packers scored 200 points and lost the game.
Yeah.
They end on the face mask. They don't call the face mask. It's why did it? So I was like, that's how it's going to end. Like,
dude. And you remember he missed a wide open Greg Jennings, like the play before.
Yes.
Him. Would have been a touchdown. But I think that worked out for the best in the long run because the Saints beat the hell out of Kurt Warner that next week.
Well, and it was the Saints' year too. We had Hurricane Katrina, like all that was happening. So it was in the books for the Saints. They were like Destiny's team at that point. So it wasn't even like you weren't even mad that they made it. You were like, oh, like that was kind of cool, even if obviously as a Vikings fan, no, you were not okay with that. But
dude, Vikings fans still hate the Saints. I feel like most compared to any other franchise. Like my brother hates the Saints more than anyone, and I think it'll always be that way forever.
And I will say, like, I do have to give them a little bit because they've been through some, like, growing up in Minnesota. I've seen some things. Like my dad, like going back to my dad, he was at the game when Gary Anderson like missed that field goal.
98.
And he's in 98, and he said, like, and that at that point it was the Metrodome, and he said he's never heard the place so quiet. You could hear like individual pockets of people talking, just went from up here to down here immediately.
I vividly remember watching that game and where I was with everything. And my dad and brother are both big Vikings fans. You probably know that from watching the live streams. But my dad was like, they're going to find a way to lose this. And then here comes Gary Anderson, hasn't missed a kick all year, shanks it. And then my dad's like, yep, here we go. Here it comes.
That's like what it is. Yeah, that's like what it is. Like I lived in an apartment with a buddy of mine who is a diehard like Vikings fan. So we had some good times. But when Blair Walsh like missed that kick, and that was a chip shot. I mean that was a gimme. Like I felt so bad like that day. I didn't even say anything. I was just like, yeah, man. Enjoy the rest of your day, man. Enjoy your day, man. Yeah. There's nothing you could do. That was a bad one for them. So I was like, that's not fun.
Yeah, Minnesota's. I don't feel bad for them because I hate the Vikings, but Minnesota. Are we back?
I believe. Yep, I can hear you now. I can see you again.
I lost you for a second. I don't know if that was me or what.
I was still moving on my side, so maybe it was me.
Yeah, I don't know because I got that storm here right now. So we're recording a thunderstorm. I don't know if my internet's being
gotcha.
A bit. But when did you finally go to Green Bay then for the first time to watch the Packers?
So here's the thing. You've had a lot of people on here that went to a lot of Packer games. I've been to one game at Lambeau Field.
Dude, you picked the game.
And exactly, like it's easy to be like, oh yeah, I picked such a good game. Like I'm not going to go back. Obviously, like I'm going to go back. But that experience, my first time, like my first like weekend in Green Bay was, dude, it was awesome. It was so cool.
Before we say which game, is that the only time you've ever been to Green Bay?
Yes.
Okay, so
So
you've
I've
only been.
Yeah, yep. So it was I mean I grew up like Green Bay was like, like when I was like real young, like watching the Packers. It wasn't, you knew it was a small town, you knew you were by the bay, you knew all that. So that carried like its own like mystique and its own regard there, where it was like, this is kind of cool. It wasn't this, you know, a big city. It wasn't this like metropolis where the stadium is. This is just a town.
Yeah.
And then like when I finally like went there and I walked up like from the neighborhood, I'm like, did they just like did they take a chopper and just bring it in and take and drop it? Yeah, there's like houses in the parking lot. I'm like, what? Where did they not want to sell? They are awfully close to the front gate here.
Yeah, dude. So one of those
It's crazy.
One of those houses over there, a few years back when Bitcoin was at like its height, like 2020 or 2021, whatever it was, one of those houses on that side there, right by the Lambeau Field parking lot, tried selling for $1 million in Bitcoin, and that was like his whole thing. But some of those houses are ridiculous. Like if you're looking at any house in that general vicinity, it's like $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 no matter what.
I saw one. It was your run of the mill, like Midwest, like it was like a Rambler style house. No updates, no anything. But you open your back door and you see the G from Lambeau Field. It was $1 million. It was $1 million. It was on there for $1 million.
Dude, that's how it is. It's so wild.
Crazy.
Like, and they're not great houses. They're outdated. A lot of them
this
torn
was
down and rebuilt by someone who buys it. They just want the space. So you come in for this game, and you come in from St. Paul, which is...
And I wasn't even going to go to the game. I wasn't going to go until like a day before. A buddy, he hit me up. He's like, hey, my dad and brother are going. Yeah. He had 4 tickets. His dad, his brother, and his 2 cousins. His 2 cousins like dropped out like the night before.
Wow.
So he hit me up. He was like, hey, I know like you're a big fan. I got an extra ticket for like $100 if you want to go. I'm like, oh, well, yeah, like absolutely. So we were on the road, like that morning.
So you kind of did it all in that day. You said you went to the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
And then did you do the tour? No.
So we did we were too late for a tour. We did the Hall of Fame tour the day after the game.
Oh, okay.
Yep, because we were there.
To stay overnight and try to do some of that.
It was
I'm sure people are waiting on pins and needles. What game did you get to attend?
So it was the a playoff game versus the New York Giants, like Randall Cobb Hail Mary game.
That was my wife and I's first game together.
Okay, cool.
So it's a memorable one for us too.
It was good. It was cool because it's probably it's like a 5-hour drive from me here or from St. Paul. So we leave like nice and early. We get there. He ended up having a room at like a Motel 8 or something, like 25 minutes away. It was, like $3,000 for that night that was already paid. Just ridiculous for and it was his cousins and his dad that already got it, but they were going to stay somewhere else. So we just like split it like with them.
Yeah.
So it all just it was weird. It all just fell in the line. So I was like, this is the playoff game. It's cold. I think the high that day was 5, maybe.
Yeah, it was cold.
I was like, this checks all the boxes for like a first trip to Green Bay, first playoff game, doing all that. So I was I was super stoked on that.
Well, do you remember that was that the game that the Giants players came out without shirts on and they were like trying to flex like they weren't cold? And
yes, and I believe
everything.
Yes, and I believe was that the year where they were on the yacht and they were posing was that year?
I think you're right.
I think and they came out, yes, and it was they were on the field with all their shirts on, and they were it was a show like in the beginning there for sure.
Well, and Odell dropped like 2 or 3 really big passes in that game, and if I'm not mistaken, I think the Packers were pretty sluggish in that first.
They were. Too. That first half was flat. I was like, Lambeau is cold right now. It was. Whew.
And
because everything.
Hail Mary hit everything.
Oh, well, it was crazy because, so like you said, they were sluggish the first half. They were doing like nothing. It was 3 and out, maybe a first down. Odell, he dropped the one, which would have been a huge, it might
Yeah.
even a touchdown, like maybe on the one. So we're all in the stands. We're like, oh shit, right now. Like this isn't going good. And shout out to all the people like in our row. I think I drank from 15 like different flasks like that day in the first half. I mean, it was cold. The wind was swirling. It snowed. It started snowing just a little, like a tiny bit.
Like the
It
perfect
was
amount.
oh, it was, and we went from the pregame where they flew the jets over, and I was very well in the bag. Drank a lot of pregame whiskeys. Um, we had went to the liquor store, and we're like, I'm just gonna get the cheapest thing they got, the cheapest whiskey, or like the beer, like that's on sale. I'm going cheap. So I think I got like a 12 pack of Bud Light, of course, because it was on sale, and a plastic flask of whiskey. We we get in our Uber, we head to the field, and I get there, and this lady, I'm not even across the street yet, and she takes and grabs the Bud Light from me, and I'm like, okay, and she's like, I'll be right back. So I'm like, all right. Comes back with the Bud Light case and just hands me the case back. So I'm like, what was that? And I look in it, and it's all like Miller Lights. So she was like she dumped out like the Bud Light I had and then filled it with cans of Miller from wherever she got it from. And then I was like, all right, okay, yeah, sure. Like, here we go.
I mean, it shouldn't even surprise me at this point with a Green Bay.
And that's my first experience. We're walking up through a neighborhood, like the gas station's closed. It has a sign. It's like, we'll be open like after the game. So I was like, what's going on here? Like the whole town just shuts down.
Yeah,
The church and the church that we walked past, like the roof is green and the cross is gold. I'm like, this is for real here. All right.
It is something that I fell in love with coming to so many games before I lived here. Just how much the town just 24/7 is Packers. Like it's I feel like when I was other places, it's relatively uncommon to see people wearing football stuff in off season. You still see it, but not very often. Where here, I feel like it's still very common. People just wear football stuff all year.
Yep.
It's just what it is. People fly their flags all year. People just are all about the Packers all year. And you see that when you come to games. So were you, when we talked about the halftime, the Hail Mary, were you still in your stands or in your seat when that happened? Or were you?
So it's kind of funny. I have like 50 snaps that are saved on my Snapchat of me that just recorded at random, and my buddy and like me and my buddy are on the same level of drunk. Half of them you can't even understand me. I'm slurring everything. Like I had called my now wife. I had called her like as the jet flew over, hammered, and I'm like, this is what heaven looks like and I'm talking to her. And the people are cheering, and she's like, "Are you good?" Like, I'm like, "I'm good," but I'm just like letting you know.
That's incredible. So you're actually in your seat though, because a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's about halftime. We're gonna get to the beer line. We're gonna hit the bathrooms," and then
it was so cold at that point. Still, like we were just kind of like staying warm at that point, like almost because they had free coffee and free, I believe it was hot chocolate during the game.
Yeah.
So I mean, you would just go back and get that and throw some booze in there a little bit to stay warm. And the winds were swirling, and then I remember, like my buddy, he was like, "This is going to be the drive," and we're all kind of around him like, "I don't know, man. I think we should just go into half and like regroup and figure it out. Like it's not working here." Because there were like little plays here and there where they would get a few yards, but like they couldn't break anything off at that point. It just wasn't working.
And I think Randall finished the game with 3 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken.
Second half he was absolutely, yeah. Like I was in the Hall of Fame the following day, and they had the video up already, like of the game, showing all his highlights and all that. Yeah, it was cool.
That's awesome. So what did you think of the? Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, once the Hail Mary hit, Lambeau was a party at that point. It wasn't cold anymore.
Yeah, isn't it funny how like one of those? It feels like such a quiet, calm place, and then one thing happens, and everyone's just amped the rest of the game, and it just kind of builds off of that. But it's very interesting how that happens.
It was crazy because we had these we had these like Giants fans. I think they were 2 rows up and like a few spots over. And that first half, they were feeling good. They were standing up. They were cheering. They kept saying like the NYPD, like you don't want to see the NYPD. And that was like the New York. It was the New York pass defense. Like at that point. And it was like these. It was these 5 guys, and they just kept saying it, and we just kept hearing them. And when that Hail Mary hit, oh my God! Oh, those dudes wanted to be anywhere else but Lambeau Field at that point.
I can imagine they're probably just hearing all the drunk Packer fans talking about the NYPD. Where was the NYPD on that one? You know?
Yeah, it was always funny. Like it was always funny and cool. Like it was never like serious. So it wasn't like you were like I don't know how this is gonna go. And they were good dudes too, so they were like giving it back and they were laughing. So it was like a lot of fun.
So what did you think of the Hall of Fame experience as a whole, since that was your first time there?
That was awesome. I think when we were in there 2, maybe 3 hours. I mean, I got so many pictures still. I was sending like pictures like to my dad, like when I was in there.
Yeah.
You sat in Brett Favre's locker. You sat in like Vince Lombardi's desk. You got to do all these things, read all the plaques, see all the trophies. They have those cool like jersey stations where it's like a game. They have the jersey, like the gloves, the pants.
Yep.
That part is like that part was cool. You get to see all the Super Bowl trophies, all the rings. So I could have spent way more time there.
It is really cool. I think you and the family need to come take a road trip during the off season.
We've been talking for a game for a while.
Dude, well, you could even like in the off season, dude, you go there and I'm sure it's coming for during the off season. It's not going to be as ideal because it's such a long commute for you guys, but dude, it's such a different beast because you'll go to the Hall of Fame or you'll go on a stadium tour and it'll be so quiet. Like the atrium's just quiet and you just have everything to yourself. We go to like Titletown, the park with our son, and It's just like there's families there, but it's quiet. It's like so different than a game day that it's so nice to be able to like take your time and really enjoy all of it without feeling like you're kind of rushed along with the crowd.
Yeah, I think that was the one thing that I really like. I'm mad that I didn't like get to do. Like, was the stadium tour?
Yeah,
because that would have been awesome. Obviously, like I don't believe they do it after a game day. Like, if I'm right.
Yeah, I don't know what their
or because of the playoffs, maybe
game days they don't do them for sure. Game days the day after they were probably sold out. What probably happened is they probably had either everyone already books, because people will do is they'll buy ahead of time and then they'll just be sold out for that entire weekend. They don't do them on game days.
Oh, got it. Sure.
Like that Friday, Saturday, and then Monday. And then as people go back, then they'll open up again. So it's really hard unless you buy it way ahead. It was interesting because we just did the draft and they had the stadium closed down Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So you couldn't do Hall of Fame, you couldn't do Pro Shop, Atrium, nothing. Everything was closed down. And I thought that was kind of interesting, but I think they explained, or someone explained, that it was from the security point of view to have everything like locked down days ahead of time so people couldn't bury drugs or whatever. But I thought that was interesting that you have all these people coming in that would probably pay a lot of money to do those things and you can't even get
you didn't have it open. It's almost like a missed opportunity a bit, but
you're not kidding. I know Corey, who is here from Australia, was pretty bummed that he couldn't do a tour again or couldn't do the Hall of Fame or any of that stuff while he was here. But
it's just so much to do there. It's crazy how much is in there to like look at and read about.
Yeah, it really is. And they're always swapping stuff out, because they have so many different pieces in their archive that they always swap stuff out. You're always like learning something new when you're coming into it. Hey, it's Ben. Sorry to jump in. I wanted to draw the giveaway for last week's episode. Before I do, I want to say thank you, as always, to all of you for taking the time to listen to the episode and for taking the time to enter the giveaways. I also want to say a huge thank you to Nicolay Law for making these giveaways possible. I say it a lot, but it is true. Without them, I would not be able to do these giveaways. So thank you so much, Nicolay Law. If you are injured, get Nicolay. All right, let's see who we got this week. this week is, this feels like a good one right here. We have Steven. I don't know if you guys can see that. My handwriting's pretty bad on that one. Steven, congratulations. Let's take a look at what you won. While I'm doing that, I want to give you guys the word for the entry for this week. If you're new here, if you've never done it before, find the giveaway link in the comments or show notes below. It's going to ask you for a word of the week or phrase of the week. This week's word is bartender. And I chose that because Russell had played a bartender in a couple of his commercials over the years. Steven, you won yourself a Lynn Dickey signed 8x10. Thank you so much. So once again, if you haven't done it before, find that link, fill it out. It's going to ask you for that word of the week, and it is bartender. And then we'll draw the winner next week. Thank you once again to everyone for taking the time to support, and thank you to Nicolay Law for making this possible. Let's get back to our episode with Kirby. Have you been to any games in Minnesota then?
Yeah. So I've been to a bunch of Packer Viking games here. Went to a few. I don't believe I went to too many. As a kid, we were more. See, I think this is why I was a bigger football fan because we had season tickets to the Minnesota Twins. So we went to all the baseball games, but that's 162 games. So, you can go to how many, and there's still 100 games left. Where the NFL season at that point was 16 games. Yeah. So it was way more every game meant so much more. So I think that kind of added to it as well.
Yeah. So are you a big Twins fan then?
So it's kind of funny because that's how I got that's where Kirby comes from. Is I was named after Kirby Puckett.
Okay.
From the Twins. It was up to my dad. So the Twins win their first World Series in 1987. I'm born in 88.
Yeah.
It was up to my dad. I would have been named Herbie Kirby Hogan after Ken Herbeck and Kirby Puckett. But my mom said no on that one. So my official first name is Donald.
Yeah.
And my middle name is Kirby. So I'm named after my grandpa, my dad's side.
Okay. I laugh a little extra because my dad bet my mom. My brother's born in 1987. My dad bet my mom and said, if the Twins win the World Series, we are naming our child Kirby. And my mom said, deal. And the Twins won the World Series, and my mom said, we're not naming our child Kirby. And so my brother now is named Brett. I laughed extra hard because you're the first other person I've ever met that was tied to Kirby Puckett.
Yep.
Because that was such a big deal.
And that's also why I got a lot of grief as a kid and a teenager for being a Packers fan. Dude, you're named after a Minnesota sports team, one of the greatest players of the team.
Yeah. Hey, at least it wasn't like you're named Fran or Tarkenton or something like that, right?
Thank God.
I mean, my brother ended up being named Brett, which is before Brett Favre, but still, growing up, he's Brett, a Vikings fan named Brett.
You can see where that could go. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can make the same argument there, but
right.
But so okay, you went to a lot of Twins games, but baseball's extremely dry, and boring in my opinion. That's a controversial take. I'm probably gonna get a lot of flack for that. I do not like baseball. But you've been to Packer Viking games then?
Yes. So I've been to a few. I've been to a handful at the Metrodome. I was at the game. I don't remember exactly what game it was, but I think Jordy Nelson had 2 or 3 touchdowns. And they blew him out that game too.
Was that still the dome or was that the new one?
That was the dome. That was the dome still. We were up. I think we could touch the top of the dome at that point. We were up. You couldn't go any higher. And there was a guy and his gal sitting a section over, probably our same row. And he's got the horns on and she's got the pigtails going and they are not enjoying the game at all. And I'm over there cheering and this dude is just side-eyeing me the entire game. And it's probably near the end of the third, maybe going into the fourth. And it's kind of quiet in there. I think it's like a TV break, and he looks over and he yells, "Are you going to cheer the whole effing game?" And I'm like, I can get louder, man. It's here we go. If you want to, sure.
Dude, be mad at your team for sucking, not my team for being good.
Right. Why are you yelling at me about that?
Yeah.
That's not my fault.
if Minnesota has a problem with it, they can pump more of their fake crowd noise in, and they can make it louder for themselves. Dude, I hated the Metrodome. I hated the Metrodome.
It was called the Humpty Dump for a reason there for a while. It was
I haven't heard the Humpty Dump. I always called it the Metro Dump.
It was the Humpty Dump. Yeah, it was. I went to a lot of Twins games there. And it was just, it was like outdated, like ballpark
Right.
at that point. It was,
Yeah.
and it wasn't even a dedicated. But they played, they did like motocross there. They did like monster trucks. They did football. They did like baseball. It was everything. So
yeah. So have you been to T? It's not. Is it T? No.
U.S. Bank. U.S. Bank Stadium. Yeah. So I've been to, I believe, now 3 games there.
Okay. How was your experience there compared to the Metro Dump?
It was. I mean, it's a brand new. It's a super nice stadium there. It's good because there I feel like I was, I wasn't young, but I don't recall at the Metrodome how many Packer fans that there were compared to like Vikings fans.
Sure.
Where at like US Bank, where you're sitting, half and half at least.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sitting in a section and there's Packer fans in front of me, and behind me there's some Vikings fans. So I've always had a good time. It's always been a good environment there. It's not like the thing I laugh about is they pump in like bubbles like into the stadium, and they like have it fall down, and it's like snowing in the stadium. And it's ridiculous because it's like, then just build an outdoor stadium if you want snow. Like, and I get, in the city from a casual standpoint, it's easier, but bubbles really like, and they fall. Then it's supposed to, it's snowing in the stadium, and
it's just like when they did their winter whiteout this past season.
Exactly.
You're like, bro, you guys playing in an indoor stadium. You're not having any. I mean, the Packers did theirs, and it was like 80 degrees, so it's just bad for them.
Well, at least they're out. At least they're outside. I think that they had a commercial here too, where they filmed it. Where they were like the Warriors of the North or something like that, and they're like in the woods, so it's snowing on them, and like Harrison Smith was like behind a tree, and it's like, then just play outside if you want to do it. Like, what are we doing?
Right. Instead, you go into the temperature controlled US Bank Stadium where it's very comfortable to be. I will say, I've been to a couple games of the Metrodome, never the US Bank. That was the one nice kind of thing, is like you can go and be comfortable watching the game, because I've been to a lot of Packer games where I underdressed and it's just freezing for 3.5 hours, and you're just
and
like,
I will agree with you there.
Cold. I am cold.
Because when I was at Lambeau, I think I used the bathroom twice, and that was a 25 minute experience there. Like, you weren't getting out of there. Everyone's hammered. Everyone's got on like a snowmobile suit. So you're in line. It's like
get smaller and smaller because
it's like a bunch of toddlers in there. Everyone's pants are on the ground. This dragging their snowmobile suit through piles of pee. It's just like, can we hurry up here, guys? So it's like, you really got to time it out if you're outside when you're going to use the bathroom or not. And hopefully it's not a zoo in there, or like indoor, the Metrodome and US Bank, you can go into the bathroom and use it and be back to your seat in, like a couple minutes there. That part is better. Yes.
Yeah. That's definitely the pros of it. On the other side, I've been to so many games at Lambeau Field where it's snowing, and it adds to that lore of the game that makes it where you wouldn't give that up for anything. But when it's those like really, really cold games, you're just like, man, I wouldn't mind sitting inside and watching this game right now.
I will say, yes, like having like my basement now with like a big TV and my own refrigerator and bathroom makes it tough to want to go. I've been to the 5 degree game now. Like, I'm good.
Yeah, you get spoiled for sure. Speaking of your basement, when did you? Because you got a nice. If people are listening to this and they're not actually watching it, you got a nice display of everything going on, man. You got some track lights across the top, or I'm sure there's a better term for them. You got like the kind of like the bar flags. I don't know if that's what they are.
Yeah, so I'm proud of I'm like very proud of like what I got. Like, a lot of my stuff I've been like collecting since I was 13, 14 years old. I've got a couple pieces up on my wall up there that I would print on my parents' printer and like use up all the color ink. That was like never good, but I still got that. So like, there's some pieces where I'm like, I printed that out, like 20 years ago at this point. But I got like,
Oh, I was gonna say your back wall almost looks like the Hall of Fame with all the jerseys, because it's so far back too that it just
Yeah, I
looks
got
like a nice.
a bunch of jerseys on there. I mean, I got stuff on the wall over there. I got like a couple of signed items. I got like a Dorsey Levens like jersey that's autographed. Bakhtiari, I got that one. I just got stuff that I've had, that I found. It was kind of like what Big B said. If it had a G on it, I was going to buy it.
Right.
So there's like I got random stuff where what is that from? Like random cans of like Miller Lite, or like random where it had like a G on it. Random pennants and pictures, and yeah, I just got a bunch of stuff that I'm like proud of that I've that I held like over the years.
Right.
Like my room at my parents' house, I repainted it. I went to, I think it was Menards at that time. It was like, I want like Lambo green. Like I want it to be like Lambo green. So I painted it like Lambo green. It was, I was up here for a while there.
Right. No kidding. I love that a lot of that stuff is just like your childhood stuff and like what's nostalgic for you and what's kind of meaningful to you from being young and being a fan. That makes it even better.
Yes, and I told my wife, I was like, "Hey, when we get a house, if I can just have the basement, if even like a wall of it," and she was like, "Yeah, you can, she'll do upstairs, I'll do downstairs." I don't think she realized how much I had, but then I was like, "If I get it on the wall fast enough, it's just going to be on the wall at that point."
Yeah,
so,
she can't say no. She can't say no. She already made the deal.
Yeah.
What would you say is your favorite item you have out of everything?
That's a tough one because there are a lot of good ones, but as cliche as it's going to sound, of course, I think my number one thing would have to be like my owner's plaque. I waited a long time. I missed it in, was it 2011? Was it like 2012 or something like that?
I think it was right after
2011.
I think the 2011 season is when they started the ball rolling on it all.
Gotcha. Okay. So I missed that one and I was pissed about that because I was like, damn, I was ready at that point. And I'm like, who's even to say that they'll do it again? Like when it could be a while. And then when I saw, I got an email like that day, it was like, hey, like we're going to, like sell stock. I was in at that point. So I do like that. Not that is, like I said, that's kind of the like a cliche answer. But that's cool because there's no other team, as much flack as I get for that. Oh, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't gain any interest. I'm like, I knew all this going into it. Yeah. I understand like what it is like at this point. No other team is doing it. Right. So I get like Vikings friends that are like, I can't believe you would do that. I'm like, they sell bricks at US Bank Stadium for $5,000 that they'll inscribe, your family like name on. Yeah. This was $250. They told me in the pamphlet like what it went to. You know what I mean? So it was cool in that regard. And name another team that's doing it. Oh, you can't because it's not happening.
I have a Packers license plate. I pay X amount every year because of my Packers license plate that goes to the Packers. You see this people with Vikings license plates, the same thing.
Right.
You're paying money every year that goes to the team.
And the thing that like gets me the most is if the Vikings, if they offered it, they would all be snatching them up immediately.
100%.
Yeah.
You're
right.
It's funny to me because I feel like the NFC North fans that trash it, I feel like they almost bring it up more than Packers fans do. The fact that we do stocks.
It does live like rent free in a lot of people's heads.
Really,
absolutely.
I see like meme pages pop up about it constantly. And it's like I'm a shareholder. I rarely ever post anything about it. I'm happy. I'm very stoked I have it. It's like I would do it again. If I didn't have it, I would do it again. Like if they do it again, I'll probably do it for Mason.
Yep.
But like I don't know where I was going with it is like it's not the complete identity of me as a Packers fan, but like you see other fans that their team or their fans talk about it way more than Packers fans do, which is classic.
And it's like I know it's not going to gain like, oh, you're not making anything on it. I read the fine print when I press buy on it. I understand that part of it.
Yeah, they're saying that as they're out at the bar for a weekend spending $400 on drinks. Like, oh, you're not making anything on your $250 way of supporting your team.
Yeah, but they'll go to a game on a Sunday and buy $18, like Coors Lights. They'll buy
Yeah,
10 of
right,
those, and
right.
it's no big deal.
Yeah, exactly. So you have a couple children. You're okay
Yep.
with me talking about that on the podcast?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So you have a couple children, and you're growing. They're being raised in Minnesota. Do you have concerns? Your wife's a Vikings fan. Your in-laws are Vikings fans. Do you have concerns about like the path that they could take in life here?
I don't, because I credit. I look at myself and go, "Hey, like my dad, he never pushed me, and I found the right way to go." So hopefully, Cash is able to do the same thing there.
Yeah.
Hopefully, he'll get his head on straight here eventually, and he'll figure out like which team to cheer for. But no, I told myself from day one, I'm not pushing on him. Obviously, he comes in the basement,
Yeah,
and he was surrounded by Packer stuff, so you can say that's the influence there. But no, he's like as of now, he's a Vikings fan. He'll tell me, Vikings rule, Packers drool, and then I'll tell him, okay, well then you're not allowed in the basement anymore. Well, I'm a Packers fan too, so.
I like that.
So he knows what he's doing.
Dude, I am not taking that high road with Mason. You have no choice if you're going to live in this household but to be a Packers fan. So, kudos to you for giving him that free will, because Mason's.
I'm just hoping it works out in my favor there for him.
I think it will, just because of how passionate you are about it. Like, I feel like if you're, and I don't know, but if your dad was more like passionate and bringing you into it, I feel like it's probably going to rub off on you a little bit of being that Vikings fan, right? If it's like
right.
your routine of watching games together and going to games together or going to signings together, I feel like that kind of cements that legacy of that bond with that team, where you didn't really have that. So you could kind of go out and free choose who you liked. And that's where it kind of put you in that, where Cash might not have that same thing because of that positive influence with it and how passionate you are with the team.
Well, and I also think like what helped as well is my dad wasn't over the top like I was, like emotionally with it. If they lost, like they lost. It wasn't, go on with your day. Where, but like I said, when I was, in my teens, it was like they lost. I was pissed the rest of the week at that point.
Have you calmed down now a little bit on it when they?
I have, yes. Now with, like you said, with life being, all about, like other things besides football, it's a good little break from, the realities of life, like in that case. And Cash is now, first couple years, he was like, dude, we got to watch football again. Like, is it on all day long? Like, he just like wasn't a fan of it, which of course, you're a young kid. You're not going to sit in front of a TV all day and watch. All like you want to do things. So then he's getting into it like a little bit like more now. I don't want to say he'll sit down and like watch a game, but he's kind of like, oh, what does this mean? Like, let's play catch with the football, fumble, touchdown. So he's coming along.
Well, he's still very young. I mean, to be able to sit down and watch a whole game when you're...
No, yeah. We'll just have it on, like in the background or something for him.
Yeah. And I mean, he's probably got, records to listen to, his 80s records or whatever he's got going on.
His Tears for Fears, yeah.
He's got stuff to do, man.
He wants to rule the world, man. He wants to rule the world.
Oh, that's great. You've listened to these, so you kind of know some of these burning hot questions I usually wrap up.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Hitting you with some of these here. So if you could, hold on, let me go to another one here. If you could sit down and have a conversation with any person associated with the Green Bay Packers, alive or dead, I'm going to get rid of a couple because I hear the same ones. I'm going to get rid of Vince Lombardi and Reggie White. Who would you choose and why?
So I think my first choice is going to be, it's not a player, but correct me if I forget her first name, but her last name was like a Van. She was the seamstress for the Packers.
Oh, the old
50s.
Lady.
Well, she was around in the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s. I think she worked for like Bertrand Sporting Goods or something like that.
Okay.
And the only reason like why I picked this is back when I worked at the dry cleaner, when I first started, like working there, trying to figure out like what actually is like dry cleaning. So I'm like looking up, what is the process and this and that. Well, then I'm looking up, Packers stuff as well. Somehow I get connected with like this seamstress gal that was like from the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s, and the stories that she had and her kids had are amazing. This crazy, like. like she was the one, I believe, if like correct me if I'm wrong, but she was the one. She like went out and bought like white fuzz for Bart Starr before what became known as the Ice Bowl, and like cut the
Okay.
slits in his jerseys and put the fuzz in there. And the Packers apparently, like according to what I read, they didn't want anyone to know that. So
Interesting.
like they cut these slits and they put, she put the white fuzz in there, and that was like your first like hand warmer or like hand muff, at that point.
And think about in that era too. Nowadays, you have like Nike that supplies jerseys or whatever, and maybe I'm mistaken because they do still have seamstresses, but I don't think they necessarily. Maybe they do. I don't know that they custom sew every single jersey, but back in the 50s and 60s, they definitely did. You're not getting mass produced jerseys.
That was another like one of the coolest stories that I read about like with her was the fact that like back then, like you said, they had a jersey and it was a game jersey first, and was like once it was like not enough shape to be a game jersey, it became a practice jersey. And then from a practice like jersey, they would re-stitch the thing over and over and over again until it would just fall apart. And then it was like they would like take it out of the cycle or whatever it would be.
Yeah.
So like, and she would freehand all this stuff. There were no stencils. Like she would just like, if there was an art, she would do it by hand. Like some of the stuff I read, I'm like, this is crazy. Like. And like she would have to get players like ready that were brought in on a Tuesday and they were flying out on a Wednesday. She'd have to do it, that night at home. So there's a story where like Bart Starr's like jersey was too big for him, and it was like too big and too wide. So he went to her house, like with his jersey, and was like, can you tailor this for me? And she took like 2 inches off the jersey and some off the sleeves, and that became like. They like went to her house. Like there was an interview like with her son, and he said that every year she would make Packers players all blankets, and he knew when she was like making the blankets because the house would be covered in like a green lint.
Dude, I've asked that question a lot of times because I did this style of podcast for 50 episodes years ago, and I've done a handful now. That is probably my favorite answer to that question I've gotten, because one, it's so unique, and the stories I've learned stuff from that. So, dude, I appreciate you bringing that.
I went down a rabbit hole like one night where it came to like like sports and how they like you said how they did the jerseys and all that, and then I found out like her name, and I just started like looking it up, and I'm like, oh, like it was crazy. She did so many things throughout the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s that like if there was a player on the field like with the jersey that was sewed, she had something to do with it. Like at that point,
that's so cool. And I also think about like when in 1957 the Packers were still wearing blue and gold, and then in 1958 Vince came in and said, no, we're the Green Bay Packers. It's green and gold. I think about that, or no, I think he came in. Did he came in? Whatever. I think he might have came in 59. I think 58 was their worst season. They had the 10-1 season. Either way, they're wearing blue and gold, and Vince comes in and says, hey, we're the Green Bay Packers. We're going to wear green and gold. I think about all the work of like, hey, all these blue and gold jerseys, we're scrapping them. Now we're going to green and gold, so you better get that sewing machine going over shit.
She had a rough couple months on that year, I'm sure.
Hopefully they gave her enough warning to be like, hey, we're switching this up.
One more like a quick one, like which also I was like, that's like an amazing story. Is she took like leather patches because they were fumbling a lot, and like one of the coaches was like, we need to stop people from fumbling. So she started sewing like leather patches like on the arms of jerseys where they would like hold the ball to like cool. Yeah, to like enhance the grip on it.
Back then, they were almost like sweaters that they wore.
Yeah, they were down. They were yeah. Yep.
That is so cool, dude. I'm gonna have to look this up after we get done with this conversation, because
you're gonna be reading some stuff.
I'm gonna be that feels like it should be like a book, right? Like there should be like a book or a documentary about this.
There's a couple of interviews the Packers actually did, I think in 2016 or 2017 about it, where they interview her kids and her grandkids. I'll like watch that one. Like that one's cool. Her son is like wearing a jersey during the interview that it was either him or his cousin. Like they wanted the name tag off the back of it. And I think it might have been like his cousin, like back in the 70s or whatever it was. He wanted the nameplate off the jersey, and she's like, I can't do that. Like I can't take it off the jersey. And he nagged her and nagged her and nagged her. And then he said like 2 weeks later, he came home, and on the counter or like on the kitchen was an envelope, and on the envelope it just said here. And he opened it up, and it was like that nameplate that was in the envelope. Like not a name on it, nothing. Here. That's all it said on it.
Dude, that's awesome. I love that answer. If you could sit down and watch any game again for the first time, having the same emotions or feelings as you did the first time you watched it, which game would you choose and why? And I'm going to exclude championship games, so no Super Bowls. Trying to think, no NFC championship games or anything like that.
Okay. If I could sit down and watch it again with the same emotions, that's a tough one. I think it would have to be. Was that a championship game? The Green Bay at Arizona, the Jeff Janis game.
No, was a divisional?
Was that divisional game? I think so. Yeah, I would say that. I would say that game only because I was pretty freshly dating my wife at that point, and I was at her parents' house. And long story short, like I met her through like where I work at, so I knew her dad already from work. So we had a relationship already where we could we could talk shit like back and forth, So it wasn't a big deal at that point, but it was pretty fresh still, pretty early on. And he's a Vikings fan, so I'm sitting in his house. The Vikings aren't playing, and I got Packer clothes on and hats, or like and a Packer hat, and I'm in the chair, and he throws that first bomb to Janice there. And I get a little loud on that one. And he's kind of looking over at me. He's kind of looking like, I know this Packer fan is not cheering on my house right now. So then I told myself, I'm like, all right, kind of calm down a little bit. Then they throw the Hail Mary, and like Collinsworth is like, that's one of the best throws I think I've ever seen. I yell so loud, and he just looks over at me like, really? Like, you're going to have that enjoyment like right now? So I think if I could, I would go back and like relive like that moment a little bit.
I like that answer as well. That's a good
that was just such a fun game too. God,
yeah.
It ended obviously like terribly.
Well, yeah. Then you watched Larry Fitzgerald, like no one tackling him, just running
like Matthews dove, 15 yards away. Oh man, that was tough.
That I feel like that game was like kind of the synopsis of Aaron Rodgers' career in Green Bay, right? Like, and Aaron Rodgers
that close.
He's not like perfect, right? Because in NFC championship games, he tended to play too conservatively, which was to his detriment.
He wasn't. Yeah, exactly.
But that game was like, Aaron Rodgers pulls this rabbit out of the hat, makes these weird, crazy plays happen, and then the defense just like, just lets the player go down the field and score, and you're like, all right, that's how it goes.
Yeah, that was a tough one. That was a tough one.
Here's another one for you. If you could attend any game in the history of the Green Bay Packers, minus a championship, so no Ice Bowl, Super Bowls, which game are you choosing and why?
That's a tough one. There's so many good ones. I think it's got to be the NFC North Championship game at Chicago. Was that 2013, 2014? Rodgers to Cobb.
Yeah, the final game of the season, 2013.
I think that last drive where they completed, they converted what, 3 or 4 like fourth downs.
Yeah, it was at least a couple that I remember, but I could be.
It was that last drive was insane, and then to watch, I think it was Kuhn when he chips like Peppers there, and Rodgers he gets outside. And if I'm at that game, if I could do like one thing, I want to have the Wisconsin broadcast on with like Wayne and Larry,
because that'd make it even better.
That Larry, that soundbite there, I still get goosebumps when he's like, he's got Cobb, he's got Randall Cobb, and he's just like, yes, Larry. He's just yelling.
I love that about Larry on how hyped he just gets about the Packers.
He just becomes a fan. Like it's great.
Wayne's breaking stuff down. You just got Larry yelling in the background, like, he's got him. And you're just like,
well, he's yelling. He's like, yes. And then like Wayne's like, as excited. I think he's like, that's your NFC North Championship dagger. Just yelling. Yeah. It was electric. I would, I think like that's the one. Yep.
I like that. That's a good answer. Let's see here. So I asked this one, and I always have to preface it. What is your most controversial take as a Packers fan? And I'll give you mine to kind of give you, because it's a weird question. Mine is that I think that if you sell like 50% of your tickets, they should be revoked if you're a season ticket holder. I think fans, if you're a season ticket holder, you should have to go to most of your games. Otherwise, you lose your tickets. So I'm curious, what's your controversial take as a Packers fan?
I think my controversial, that's a tough one as well. I think it would be, I don't even know if you would consider it like I guess it's a take, but if some Packer fans could just, and I'm not as guilty as it of now, like I don't think anyway, but like definitely like back in my teens here for sure, but just pump the brakes on the entitlement a little bit when it comes to like there are points where it's like, I know, and I was going to say entitled town for a reason, because there's some stuff I read or hear from fans that's like, well, what are you doing right now? Like you're putting out, or you're the reason for people not liking Packer fans, this sort of thing there, because there are some fans where it's like, I mean, first off, like pinch yourself, because you don't know how good you've had it for the last how many decades. I mean, I grew up Favre, like Rodgers, and now Love. Like, could you pick a better era to be in besides like Bart Starr?
And not to age us too much, but like, dude, we're gonna be 40 here in no time, and to think about, realistically, half of our life is gone at this point, or getting close to half of our life gone, and we've watched winning football the entire time. Like that is a very special thing.
I woke up every Sunday, like I probably haven't like missed a game like on TV since I was probably, I don't know, maybe 14 or so, 15. I've woken up every Sunday or Monday or Thursday and not had a quarterback worry in my fandom.
Yeah, that's a wild thing.
Like there's teams that like, look at the Browns, or they've gone through like dozens of quarterbacks, like multiple a year.
Yeah.
And it's been 2 and now Love, which is kind of crazy. And, I was born in like 88, so I wasn't really there with, the whole terrible 80s, and all that. So I can't sit and say, you weren't there like with them like when they were terrible. Sorry, I wasn't born yet. Like that wasn't my it's not my fault. I didn't have control over that. Forever. Yeah, so I think that would be it, is to pump the brakes on the entitlement a little bit. I'm guilty as well. Yeah. I need to do it as well, because there are times when I can put the cart like before the horse here a little bit. It's and some of the stuff, and like at that point, like maybe I was just too like online at that point, where I was just like reading, like too much of it. But there were fans I was reading where they was just, you were like, how dare you not win by 30 plus points and every receiver have 100 yards and Jones gets 30 plus touches, and it's like they can't do everything.
Yeah. I love the people who play Madden and they are like, well, you should just be able to draft perfectly every year because I can do it in Madden. Like, it's not that hard. And you're like, well, this is a completely different thing. If GMs like truly knew who was going to be a good draft pick or who wasn't, there wouldn't be NFL busts. Like, it is a crapshoot. They're the pros and they still screw it up. Yeah, dude, no one knows. You're making a guess based off of factors that you have, and you're hoping for the best. And I get so irritated that it's 8 years later and we're still hearing about TJ Watt, and you're like, well, if he wasn't from Wisconsin and his last name wasn't from Watt, no one would care. Like,
and that's a good point that you bring up, because now like hindsight is 2020. So now people will they'll nitpick here and there. Well, look, they should have taken him. You didn't know what he was going to do. Yeah, like no one knew what they were going to do.
Well, I'm
How
always
are we
like,
supposed to know?
do you remember Ladarius Gunter guarding Julio Jones in the NFC Championship game? Do you remember that? And we had Nick Perry and Clay Matthews as edge rushers at the time that were both under contract.
The reason I remember that is because I was at the Tilted Kilt Bar in Chicago when I watched that game. In Chicago, I think I bought the bottle of like Rumplemans from behind the bar. It was just like, here's $100 bill, just charge me, and just like give me the bottle. It was me and a handful of buddies, and I mean they got smoked that game.
Yeah,
and
dude,
I was in
bad.
Chicago for it. Rough.
Ladarius Gunter's probably still lost somewhere, and I liked Ladarius, but he got torched that game.
So I think wasn't it Ripkowski had like 2 fumbles in that game too, or something like that?
Yeah, that was just like everything was happening. But it's always that draft pick. You don't hear about how we took Dayton Jones right before DeAndre Hopkins, or Devon House right before Richard Sherman. There's every draft has those. We've taken guys that other teams passed on that have worked out really well for us, but no one gives the benefit of the doubt there. It's always like, well, the Packers didn't draft this guy that now 5 years later I know is good.
Well, and then you get you get the people as well that will like write in, like Wes was saying, like in his, it's just filtered with nonsense because people are. It's just like, what are you doing at this point? It's crazy.
Now you got me on a tangent, man. I'm heated. I'm supposed to be going to bed here soon, and now I'm like fired up.
So don't kill me on that one, but I think just the entitlement, pump it back like a few, like a few spaces, and let's just get back to and I say this now like obviously, but let's get back to enjoying it a little bit more, and not immediately like grading everything that went wrong or that didn't go right. You know what I mean?
I've always like when people like comment on stuff and they're like heavily criticizing stuff, I've always been tempted to like look up where they work and then go to their job and be like, dude, what are you doing? Why'd you make that mistake? Like, dude, you're a professional. Why'd you make that mistake?
Come on, faster.
Like,
Here, come on.
Just like start like giving them the same. Come on, dude, what are you doing? Like you've been doing this. Why are you screwing this up? Just because like they need to realize that this is just a job for everyone here. We all make mistakes. Well, life's not perfect.
And the fact as well, like these are 22-year-old, like 23-year-old.
Right.
What were you doing at 23? You know what I mean?
Not to keep getting sidetracked here because we are running long, but I'm going to share the story. At the draft, as Packers fan, we're all standing around waiting for the picks to be made, and this drunk Packer fan comes up to us as a group, and he's like, I think we can all agree F Lucas Van Ness, right? And I'm like, nope, certainly can't agree. And he's like, why are you here if you're not, saying F Lucas Van Ness? I was like, to support my team. And he's a Packers fan. Like the dude's a Packers fan and he's wearing a Watson jersey. And I was like, I've heard of Lucas Van Ness. I don't know who you are. And he's like, I'm nobody. I'm like, exactly my point. So maybe like you should probably pump the brakes. And I said, I also find it ironic that you're wearing a Christian Watson jersey, like when you're criticizing Lucas Van Ness for not producing like you'd want him to. And the dude was just like stupid drunk and whatever. But I was just like one of those things where I'm just like, dude is a young kid who has achieved more in life than most people will in their endeavors, in their career. No one will climb to those heights. Except for the very small percentage of people.
He could retire next week and be good.
I certainly will never climb to that height in my career of web development. I will never be the top like 1% in what I do. And that's I can accept that, but yeah, I don't know.
It's wild. It's and especially, I mean, Packers are expected to make the playoffs every year. Yeah. They're expected to compete for a championship every year. But shit happens. You get injuries. You get they're in a funk or people just aren't. It happens. And football is such a game-to-game.
Yeah.
Like a game-to-game thing. Where yes, one game, one important division game could, if it's toward the end of the year, that could like derail the season there for sure. If it's a loss at like the most inopportune time at that point. So I can kind of see a little bit on where they come from, but at the end of the day, like you said, are you perfect? Probably not.
Yeah.
So You
Dude,
just watch it for a little bit, and
I'm not going to criticize anyone who's achieved more than me. Like, then I can't compete in that realm. I'm not criticizing. I'm a fan for a reason. I am not in that
but I will say I can criticize just a little bit because when I was at Lambeau for that playoff game, we like drunkenly stumbled across the town like after the game, and Ray Nitschke Field, the practice field, the gate was open. So we just walked in there. And there was a tub of footballs. We played catch on the field at like midnight.
You're practically a Packer player at this point.
So I figured at that point, I touched the grass a little bit. So hey, I can maybe criticize a little bit more than
you can
than
probably
someone
put
else.
it on a resume that you played like practice squad ball for them or something like that.
Dude, like we're in there, we're throwing the ball around, being super loud, like being just dumb about it. And this van like pulls in, and the dude gets out with a flashlight. He's like, "What are you doing?" We're like, "We're leaving." He goes, "Good." We just like walked out, and like off we went, like back down the street.
That's the best. Yeah, just practice squad, dude. Practice squad Kirby.
Exactly.
All right, last one here for you. If you woke up tomorrow, the Packers don't have a traditional owner. You and I are both owners, like we talked about, that people love hearing us say. But if you woke up tomorrow as the guy, you had full authority to do whatever you wanted, whether it's the stadium, team, whatever. What is the first thing you're doing as the Packers quote unquote owner?
Probably like free cheese curds for the first quarter. That'd probably be it there. Just let people go there. You shouldn't have to pay for cheese curds at a Packer game. It might be a little different if it's cold. You probably don't want to get cheese curds like at that point. But as an owner, like you said, because like you said, people like love to hear that. If I actually was the legitimate owner, I would bring in, a couple owners a week, fly them in or something, like let them come in, be part of the game plan, be part of the be part of the room.
Ooh,
You know what I mean? Do that sort of thing. Because if you're an owner, let's see how it flows a little bit. You know what I mean? And make it a drawing of some sort, make it a sweepstakes. Like do something of the sort. Maybe open up like Lambeau Field. Let's let LaFleur out there. We'll bring back like the old school be like a projector from like 8th grade where you put the slide on top and it shows. Just have a huge screen at Lambeau just showing on that.
Dude, I love
Here's the first 10 plays. Here's the first 10 plays. Let us know if they're good or not, because you're going to criticize anyway. So
you got like a community vote on if we're axing a player, if we get to keep it.
Like how cool would it be as an owner if you were there like that week and you're like, maybe run like the double like reverse the second play, and they do it. Like you'd be like, I did that. That was me on that one.
That was me. Did you hear that story about Andy Reid was talking about when he was with the Packers? Was it like a vendor or some random person gave him a play idea and he used it in a game? And it
I haven't heard that.
Yeah, so Andy Reid talked about how, I don't remember if it was like a vendor or something. Someone pitched him this play or gave him this play that he used that he said did really well. And like they were probably feeling that same way of like, I did that. And you could have that.
I mean, talk about a football experience there. Like talk about as a fan, if your team ran the play that you threw at the coach, that would be.
No one's going to believe you ever.
I would never stop talking about it. Yeah, I would never stop talking about it.
No one would believe
you. I would take a screenshot from the game on Fox and like wear it on a t-shirt, just wear it out.
I drew this. This is my play. Anything else that you feel we missed? I know we've been talking for a minute, which I appreciate your time. Anything else on your end?
I think we covered it. I mean, we were just kind of talking there. I mean, you kind of know, you have family who are Vikings fans. You kind of know the is it a rivalry or is it more like the border battle? I think it's more of a rivalry now than it was before.
Yeah, I think it was
like before. Yeah, like it was a border battle when they weren't doing very well. Yeah. But then when they started being good again, then it suddenly became a rivalry again.
Yep.
So I think you kind of know, but just being a Packer fan growing up in Minnesota with no Wisconsin like no family, no connections, no anything. It's been like a pretty fun ride with the success of the team as well too. So there are a lot of teams and a lot of fans that they would cut an arm off to be able to like have a Super Bowl run, or have two quarterbacks over 25 plus years.
Yeah, dude, you could have picked.
I mean,
you could have picked some obscure team just randomly and be hating your life forever. Like the Cowboys were huge when you were at that point. You could have picked a Cowboys fan, just riding the wave and saw your success and then not see it anymore and just be a constant disappointment.
I mean, just imagine it's been pretty good like lately, but as a Lions fan,
yeah,
I mean, you went through it for
forever.
I mean, two of your best Hall of Fame players just retired early. Like, it just said, I'm done here at this. That's so there are days where I got to push myself a little bit.
Then you go watch your quarterback win a Super Bowl with the Rams rather than with you. Like, that's hurtful.
Yep. Yeah. It's so I do have to be, kind of remind myself as well. Like, hey, it's been a pretty fun ride.
And that is the one and only Kirby. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I want to say a huge thank you to Kirby for taking the time to record it with me. It was such a great chance for me to sit down and talk with him. I've gotten to kind of befriend Kirby now over the past few months on my page. So it's so cool to get a chance to talk to him and hear his story. I want to say thank you as well to Nicolay Law, as always, for sponsoring the show, making the giveaways possible, and all they do to support the show. So I can't thank them enough. If you are injured, get Nicolay. If you want to be on an episode of Tales from the Tundra, you can find the link on how to apply in the show notes. Fill that out. I'll be reviewing it and reaching out if we think it's going to fit. And yeah, as always, I'm Ben. Thank you so much for watching and taking the time to support the podcast. If it's your first time or minieth time, I don't think that's a word, but you know what I mean. Thank you guys so much. Really, I can't thank you enough. So until next week, until next time, see you then. Go Pack Go.